The modern attack helicopter has quickly become an essential tool for any modern fighting force. It is highly versatile. It can pick up targets from hiding with deadly precision, or range ahead of advancing friendly forces, locating and attacking the enemy with devastating effect. Like the tank, the attack helicopter combines the key characteristics of protection, mobility, and firepower. Capable of over 150 miles an hour, the attack helicopter is the fastest, most agile helicopter on the battlefield. It can also hover and hide using natural cover until it locates the enemy and strikes. Space-age materials protect the crew and aircraft from enemy fire. Rotor blades, engines, and undercarriage are designed to withstand direct hits. Because helicopter fuselages are narrow, they have reduced visual and radar profiles, and the latest designs have stealth features. Darkness and bad weather don't ground the attack helicopter. Night vision equipment and infrared targeting offer the enemy no escape in fog or at night. Forward-looking infrared and global positioning systems allow the pilot to navigate precisely and fly at below radar altitudes. Laser and radar-guided anti-tank missiles knock out even the most heavily armored battle tanks. Other fighting vehicles have little chance of escape from powerful unguided rockets, and a hard-hitting built-in cannon or machine gun gives added short-range firepower. The attack helicopter is incredibly versatile. Its primary role has traditionally been anti-armor, tasked with knocking out enemy tanks at decisive points. As a battlefield weapon, the aircraft can fly in massed formations or alongside reconnaissance helicopters, acting as a hunter-killer team. They devastate the enemy's flank and rear areas while giving fire support to advancing troops in armor. Bunkers, observation posts, and forward headquarters can also be targeted. The attack helicopter not only destroys enemy forces, but it also disables its command and control systems, degrading its ability to fight. The attack helicopter forms the teeth of the air assault operation. It escorts transport helicopters carrying troops, suppresses the enemy throughout the assault, and provides fire support to friendly forces. The impressive array of electronics means that the attack helicopter is also a valuable surveillance and reconnaissance tool. It can gather data on enemy troop movements, tank concentrations, and even weather conditions. The modern attack helicopter can perform all these tasks 24 hours a day in all weather. It was the French in the 1950s who first mounted weapons on helicopters during the Algerian War of Independence. Carrying various guns for anti-guerrilla operations, they achieved impressive results. At the same time, the U.S. began arming its helicopters. The Army Aviation Center was established at Fort Rucker in 1955, and by the following year, it was deploying guns on helicopters. The assault helicopter was born. The Vietnam War saw widespread use of armed helicopters in air assault operations. But the upgunned versions of the Army's famous UH-1 Huey transports were too crude and slow to cope with the demands of air mobile operations. In 1965, the U.S. Army demanded a specially designed aircraft and offered a bid for the Advanced Aerial Fire Support System. Developed by Bell, the UH-1's manufacturer, the AH-1 Huey Cobra became the world's first dedicated attack helicopter. The Cobra entered service in 1967 with the 1st Air Mobile Cavalry Division. Instantly, it brought new levels of speed, agility, firepower, and armor protection to the battlefield. A Gatling gun and a grenade launcher, plus hard-hitting rockets, gave the AH-1 awesome firepower. It became a valuable weapon in assisting air assault operations, providing accurate, effective, close-in fire support. The Cobra defined many of the standard features on today's attack helicopter. At just over 3 feet wide, the Cobra's narrow fuselage made it a difficult target to hit from head-on. It also defined the tandem cockpit, positioning the gunner in front of the pilot. The AH-1G carried a sophisticated and now standard sensors suite, allowing it to hit targets during the day or night. The Cobra became a resounding success in Vietnam. Noting its success with the Army in Vietnam, the Marines ordered their own AH-1J Sea Cobra variant in 1968. Entering service 2 years later, the Sea Cobra was also a success in Vietnam. It was similar to the Army's version, but had 2 engines for increased safety, important for long overwater flights. Against the background of war in Southeast Asia, the U.S. Army was also evaluating its heavyweight armed helicopter contender, the Lockheed AH-56 Cheyenne. Hugely complex, Cheyenne was designed as an aerial battleship with a massive weapon load. Making its first flight in 1967, the Cheyenne flew at over 200 miles an hour, unprecedented for any helicopter. However, the program suffered from spiraling costs and inter-service rivalries. Technical difficulties and the advent of shoulder-launched surface-to-air missiles convinced the Pentagon that the AH-56 was a white elephant. Cheyenne was canceled. But the concepts it demonstrated would later be transferred to future attack helicopters. As the Vietnam War ended, America's thoughts turned to other threats. Cancellation of the Cheyenne left a huge gap in the ability of U.S. forces to counter the massive buildup of Soviet armor in Eastern Europe. From the early 1970s, AH-1s formed NATO's best line of defense against Warsaw Pact main battle tanks and other key targets. Each helicopter could engage up to 8 targets with tow, tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided missiles. Soviet attack plans called for a rapid, armored invasion of Europe through breaches such as the Fulda Gap on the east-west German border. Until a purpose-built helicopter could be developed, the best alternative was to arm the Huey Cobra with anti-tank missiles. Cobras would help to slow any advance until NATO lines were reinforced. Throughout the 1970s, the AH-1s formed the mainstay of the U.S. attack helicopter fleet. It also became a success on the export market and was sold to over a dozen other nations, keen to equip their forces for Cold War confrontation. The Cobra engaged the Iraqi army in the 2003 Iraq War. It then switched to targeting insurgent forces after the overthrow of Saddam Hussein's regime. The development of air-mobile operations in Vietnam by the U.S. Army had impressed the Soviets. They are also well aware of the threat that the Huey Cobra posed to their tanks on the other side of the Iron Curtain. In the late 1960s, the Mill Design Bureau began development of the first Soviet combat helicopter. The resulting Mi-24 Hind has become a legend. The Hind made its combat debut in Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion of 1979. It was used intensively, becoming the signature weapon of the conflict. The designers took the characteristics of armor, agility, sensors, and weaponry and adapted them to Red Army doctrine. It used key components derived from the Mi-8 HIP assault transport in much the same way that the Cobra shared major systems with the UH-1 Huey. But the Hind was much bigger, faster, and more powerfully armed than the Cobra. Hind supported the Soviet philosophy of delivering massive firepower on the battlefield. But unlike its Western equivalent, the Hind was flown by Air Force personnel. Despite being nearly 60 feet long and weighing in at 11 tons, the helicopter has a top speed of 168 miles an hour, thanks to twin Isotov turbines, pushing out over 4,000 horsepower. The fuel system is protected with self-sealing tanks and the exhausts of heat signature suppression systems. Like an infantry fighting vehicle, the Hind is well armored. Its cockpit and rotor can absorb 20mm cannon fire, and the interior is pressurized against nuclear, biological, or chemical attack. The pilot uses forward-looking infrared and night vision goggles to aid navigation. Later versions have been fitted with modern liquid crystal displays. Upgrade packages include thermal imaging and infrared sighting systems. The Hind carries a fearsome array of weapons. Most early models featured a heavy machine gun, which fired 4,000 to 4,500 rounds per minute. This was later replaced with a 30mm cannon. The main anti-tank armament was the radio-guided AT-2 Swatter, or later, the more advanced AT-6 Spiral missiles. But the heaviest punch comes from rockets. The Hind can carry over 120, each of 57mm caliber. The Hind was available in huge numbers as exports were made to key Warsaw Pact states. Its deployment in Europe only made NATO generals more worried. They already feared the Soviets' massive numerical superiority in weapons. But with the Hind's introduction came a potent deep strike capability. In the event of a Soviet invasion of Europe, Hinds could have surged ahead to hit NATO forces in the rear. This would have devastated NATO supply lines across Europe and depleted their reserves. Over 300 Hinds were lost during 10 years of combat with the Mujahideen. They feared and respected the type, naming it the Devil's Chariot, though to its crews, it was always the Crocodile. By the time of the Hind's arrival, development of the next-generation attack helicopter in the U.S. had already begun. This resulted in the deadly AH-64 Apache. Conceived during the 1970s, the Apache adopted many of the characteristics and lessons learned from the Huey Cobra. The Apache's early development was dogged by problems. Prototypes suffered mechanical glitches, and engine failures, sometimes of both engines, plagued early models. The Apache retained the key characteristics of agility, protection, sensors, and weaponry. Twin General Electric T700 turbines give the Apache a cruising speed of 170 miles an hour. Exhaust suppressors greatly reduce its infrared signature, protecting the Apache against heat-seeking missiles. Its development had anticipated the rapidly rising threat from battlefield air defense weapons. Noting the potency of Soviet ZSU anti-aircraft guns, the crew was protected by composite armor. This armor also protects critical parts of the aircraft. The two engines are widely separated. A single hit is unlikely to knock out both. A second set of redundant flight controls allows the crew to continue their mission if flight systems are damaged. The main rotor can keep the aircraft flying for up to 5 hours after suffering damage. Should this fail, the undercarriage is tough enough to withstand a heavy crash landing. Enemy tanks are located by Target Acquisition and Designation System, or TADS, a combination of laser, infrared, and low-light television sensors. Once located, targets can be engaged from beyond the range of battlefield air defense systems. TADS introduced the capability to operate by day or night. The Pilot Night Vision System, or PNVS, also uses infrared, allowing the helicopter to fly ground-hugging missions. This standoff capability comes from laser-guided Hellfire missiles, which use kinetic energy and a tandem-shaped charge warhead to knock out even the most heavily armored battle tank. 2.75-inch rockets destroy lightly armored and soft-skinned vehicles. These are backed up by a potent 30mm chain gun with a range of over 1 mile. AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles protect the helicopter against other air threats, while AGM-114 sidearms protect against radar. Although the AH-64 can stay aloft for over 3 hours, its combat loiter time can be increased. 230-gallon conformal fuel tanks extend the Apache's range, allowing it to hit enemy targets over 90 miles away. One of these tanks can increase Apache's combat radius to 180 miles. The AH-64 can be fitted with 4 such tanks if necessary. It also increases its ability to deploy early in a conflict. Apache has undertaken all attack helicopter missions, including close support, air assault, escort, and reconnaissance. Making its combat debut in December 1989, AH-64 has participated in Operation Just Cause, the U.S. invasion of Panama. The Apache formed part of a new generation of Army battlefield systems, operating with the M1A1 Abrams main battle tank and the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. Had the Cold War turned hot in Europe, the Apache's main task was to destroy Soviet anti-tank weapons, armor, and troops, giving NATO time to reinforce its defenses and counterattack. Apaches would have operated in hunter-killer teams with OH-58D Scouts, which act as helicopter-borne forward air controllers for the attack helicopter force. Fitted with a mast-mounted optical sight, OH-58s would identify and track targets, feeding the coordinates back to the AH-64s for the attack. Apache's capabilities were displayed to a global audience during Operation Desert Storm. Designed to fight Soviet tanks in Europe, the Apache became highly effective at knocking out Iraq's Russian-built armor. Apaches killed over 800 tanks and tracked vehicles, plus over 500 other military vehicles. 8 Apaches of Task Force Normandy fired the first shots of the war when they destroyed 2 Iraqi air defense radar sites, opening a safe corridor for coalition strike aircraft bound for Baghdad. Its older cousin, the Huey Cobra, also performed well during the conflict. 2 AH-1s used their tow missiles to block an Iraqi Republican Guard convoy trying to cross the Euphrates River. In 1993, Army and Marine Cobras deployed to Somalia. They protected civilians and humanitarian organizations from indiscriminate attacks during that country's drawn-out civil war. Huey Cobra will continue to serve with the U.S. Marine Corps, being upgraded to Zulu standard, enabling them to serve until 2013. The Zulu will carry more weapons and will feature a 4-bladed quiet rotor system and improved maneuverability. Operations like that in Somalia formed the template for the 1990s. These saw a huge increase in the number of deployments of military forces to conduct humanitarian intervention, crisis reaction, and peace support operations. The most notable example is that in the former Yugoslavia. Helicopters such as the Apache are air portable and can be deployed anywhere in the world within 24 hours. In 1998, the Apache participated in operations in Bosnia-Herzegovina. The Pentagon warned that the AH-64s would get up close and personal with Serbian armor. Chinook helicopters transported U.S. engineers to strategic locations so that they could build bridges across Bosnia's River Sava. Apaches provided cover for these engineers and patrolled the zone of separation between Serbian and Bosnian forces. More recently, Apaches played a vital role in attacking Iraqi armor and troop positions in 2003's Operation Iraqi Freedom. Development of an even more capable Apache began after Desert Storm. The result was the AH-64D. It had already been recognized that the distribution of vital information, such as target location, would be increasingly important. The upgraded AH-64 would be developed to meet the demands of such network-centric warfare. Vital data would be transmitted automatically between a range of aircraft, both combat types and command and control platforms. The key system that transforms the Apache into a 21st century weapon is the Longbow millimetric wave radar system. This is housed in a radome that sits on top of the helicopter's rotor mast. Longbow can simultaneously track 128 targets in 19 square miles of territory. Once threats are identified, the 16 most dangerous are prioritized, all in less than 30 seconds. The Longbow Apache can then destroy them with its radar-guided Hellfire missiles. To permit the pilot and gunner to use the new radar and to view all of the additional information it provided, the new Apache was fitted with liquid crystal display screens in each cockpit. And Longbow provides another great benefit. The ability to positively identify targets greatly reduces the chances of mistakenly taking out friendly forces. In 1996, a team led by Boeing and Sikorsky first flew the prototype RAH-66 Comanche. Although the entire Comanche program was canceled in February 2004, it offered a tantalizing glimpse into what the future of manned attack helicopters might be. The super agile type had been projected to replace the AH-1 Cobra, plus the OH-6 and OH-58 Scout helicopters. It would also have succeeded the Apache. The keys to the Comanche were its stealth technology and its avionics. It incorporated many of the high-tech avionics systems developed for the ultra-advanced F-22 Raptor fighter. The small airframe had been carefully shaped to reduce its radar signature. Features included an angular, stealthy airframe, retractable undercarriage, a tail rotor shrouded inside the fin, and internal weapons carriage. Comanche could carry a potent mix of weapons. These included a 20mm Gatling gun with a rate of fire of between 750 and 1,500 rounds per minute. Its ammunition could be reloaded in less than 8 minutes. To supplement this, the next generation of anti-armor Hellfire and Stinger air-to-air missiles would have been carried. Using the Longbow radar, the helicopter would have been able to identify and track targets, relaying information back to ground commanders. The latest liquid crystal displays gave the crew targeting and flight information, and a color display featuring map and targeting data. Around $8 billion had been invested in the development of the high-tech Comanche project when the U.S. Army decided to reallocate funds to modernize its existing attack helicopter fleet. The end of the Cold War has led to the third generation of attack helicopters. European manufacturers are competing with proven American and Russian designs through collaborative projects such as the Franco-German Tiger, which first flew in 1991. Manufacturers in both South Africa and Italy have produced impressively agile and versatile attack helicopters in the last 25 years. The Tiger is available in 3 separate versions. The HAC and UHT are anti-tank helicopters, while the HAP is the combat support and escort model. Like its Italian counterpart, the A129 Mangusta, it has a high degree of mission diversity and is especially designed to operate with rapid reaction forces. Like the Apache and the Hind, its cockpit is insulated against nuclear, biological, and chemical attack. The Tiger's airframe is reinforced with composite armor. Stealthy Nomex honeycomb skins and fiber composite blades reduce the aircraft's radar signature. But unlike its predecessors and contemporaries, the pilot sits in front of the gunner. Both crew members have helmet-mounted sights. The pilot uses a fighter plane head-up display, while an advanced Eurogrid digital map aids navigation. The Tiger also features a full electronic warfare suite, including a radar warning receiver and a missile detection system. Tiger retains an all-weather performance using highly advanced sensors. It can identify enemy forces using its SAGM mast-mounted sight. Ranges are then computed using the infrared charge couple device before the attack is executed. The aircraft features a 30mm cannon, together with Trigat and HOT missiles. Trigat has a range of up to 16,000 feet and can devastate armored vehicles. The helicopter can also be outfitted with Stinger and Mistral anti-aircraft missiles. In its combat support role, Tiger deploys an impressive array of weapons. 68mm rockets can engage medium or long-range threats. This is reinforced with a 30mm turreted gun. The French HAP version is fitted with an automatic cannon, firing 750 rounds per minute. The French anti-tank version, HAC, carries HOT-2 or Trigat missiles. The French also purchased an escort version, HAP, which is equipped with a 30mm nose cannon and a Ruth-mounted sight. Meanwhile, the Germans have combined these capabilities in their Tiger UHT. Tiger production began in 2002. France has ordered 80 machines, and noting their role in recent complex emergencies, they have purchased 70 HAP variants to be reinforced with 10 HAC aircraft. To increase versatility in its smaller armed forces, Germany has ordered 80 of the UHT versions. The French and German armies will eventually each fly 120 Tigers. Italy's small but powerful A129 Mangusta features twin Rolls-Royce GEM turbines. They give the helicopter impressive agility and speed. The Mangusta's key systems are well protected. The armor uses the latest composite material technology. Its rotor blades can take hits from 12.7mm ammunition, and the cockpit can withstand 23mm shells. The 4-bladed rotor has a low noise profile, while a narrow fuselage reduces radar signature. An AN/AAR-60 missile launch detector protects against ground threats, together with a radar warning receiver. If all else fails, a countermeasure suite disperses chaff and flare decoys. Like its American counterparts, Mangusta can deliver a devastating blow. Carrying the same tow missiles as the Huey Cobra makes the A129 an effective vehicle killer. The tow missiles can be reinforced with the HOT system and twin 12.7mm machine gun pods. HOT, a joint Franco-German missile, has served in several theaters, including Desert Storm, Spanish Sahara, and Lebanon. HOT is a tube-launched, wire-guided system. Its 14-pound tandem-charged warhead can penetrate armor up to 4 feet thick. The missile is laser-guided and can fly up to 13,000 feet. The avionics include forward-looking infrared. Navigation is assisted with a GPS system, while the pilot can use an automatic flight control system for low-level operations. South Africa's extensive combat experience during its long wars in Angola and Namibia influenced the development of the Ruivalk. Using many systems from the Puma helicopter and developed in spite of international sanctions, the Ruivalk was produced for the South African Air Force. This robust machine is armed with Makopa anti-tank and A-Darter air-to-air missiles, together with a rapid-fire 20mm automatic cannon. It can also be used for intelligence gathering, electronic warfare, and even as an airborne crane. Survivability is improved with a low detection signature, dual redundant flight controls, high agility, and a damage-tolerant airframe. Furthermore, the helicopter can operate in almost all weather, by day or night. Fast and accurate targeting is provided by nose-mounted sighting systems and the pilot's head-up display. Like the Apache, the Ruivalk's wings can be fitted with extra fuel tanks to increase range. The first Ruivalk was delivered to the South African Air Force in 1998, with production eventually being completed in 2001. The Ruivalk is marketed by its manufacturer, Denel Aviation, and the Franco-German Eurocopter Group. The helicopter will be aimed at customers wishing to buy a heavier, more versatile aircraft, which can be used for both policing and military missions. The Comanche showed how far the attack helicopters evolved since the early Huey Cobra gunships that fought in Vietnam. The missions have changed since then. The end of the Cold War and the emphasis on smaller campaigns have caused armies to change and modify their equipment. But the attack helicopter has remained a constant. Its mix of agility, armor, sensors, and weapons is modified as each generation of aircraft is designed for new missions. Its versatility as an attack, escort, and reconnaissance platform is still unmatched. Whether destroying armored columns in the desert or protecting peacekeepers in a war-torn state, the attack helicopter will remain a vital military tool for many years to come.